about your age. Has it working that is half as long as you? He makes twice as much money as you do. Red blues, red blues, red blues, baby, red blues. Every kind of people got every kind of blues, but red man's got red blues. After work, I go home, make myself a drink, grab a glass, a few ice cubes, walk on over to the sink. My old lady says that I ought not to. You'll get sick if you drink that water. Red blues, red blues, red blues.
Sagal, it is November 27th. Welcome to Let's Talk Native on the LTN Radio Network. This program breaks all the rules for Native radio. No buffalo speeches, no mystic healing, no special Indian prayers. We tackle the real issues facing Native people. We'll look back at our glorious and our grave history. A tough look at where we're at now, and we'll look forward to our ongoing battles for sovereignty and autonomy. Let's Talk Native is produced in association with Iroquois Promotions on the LTN Radio Network, streaming live from the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation and simulcast and rebroadcast on the Gwe, CKWE in Tandanega. You can find us at www.ltnradionet.com. That's where you can listen to our audio. Or you can just catch us on Facebook. And we're streaming live on Facebook right now. And you can catch the audio and, of course, the video. I am John Kane. I am your show's host and producer. And I'm joined in studio by my buddy Jake Proud, who is running the board and the cameras for not just for the Facebook live stream, but for what we post up on our YouTube video channel, which is Let's Talk Native TV. So I appreciate Jake coming in and doing what he does. And I also want to thank Kelly McMillan, our studio engineer, for providing us with our setup here. The opening song was Res Blues, a song that I oftentimes open this show and my show in New York with, because it it captures a little bit of just the kind of strife that Native people go through. A touch of racism, what I would call environmental racism, the contamination of our water, and so much more. So anyway, we open the show with Murray Porter and Res Blues. Look, I'm going to get right into it. Donald Trump. This guy is just there's almost like no depth or no limit to the ignorance this guy displays on a daily basis. I mean, think about an event, and I've talked about this on my show before. I'm not a big fan of Native people enlisting in the armed forces, and I don't, again, I'm not dogging people for having done so. But there's a way of romanticizing it in such a way that things get mischaracterized. And one of the things that I think that has really been over romanticized has been the code talker issue. To put that whole thing in perspective, our languages were being destroyed by the federal government. Literally being destroyed, not just in residential schools, but it was becoming such a stigma for Native people to maintain their language that entire generations stopped teaching their children. I mean, we did it. We stopped teaching our children. Our parents, my father's generation, didn't teach my generation the language. I mean, we're talking about language that lasted for thousands and thousands of years, developed over the millennia. And because of the overt racism of the United States and the overt racist policies of the United States, not only did they have a hand in trying to destroy the language with residential schools and not just the residential schools, but education in general, but they would shame our people to the point that we would have, and sometimes it varies which generation it was. In my situation, I'm Mohawk and from Ganawage. It was my parents' generation that didn't teach it, but it goes back a couple of generations. Where you got to go almost to grandparents or great grandparents to find people who speak the language fluently. But so you consider a language that was destroyed, and then lo and behold, the United States finds itself in a war where they can't seem to manage to come up with a way of communicating the information they need to get to command, and everything from doing bombing raids and that kind of stuff. They can't develop a code that the Japanese in particular can't break. So what do? They appropriate our language. Languages. Because we all the most familiar one that people are used to hearing is the Navajo code talkers. But it was more than just Navajo. There were at least half a dozen other native languages that was used for code. Now, it wasn't that we were just speaking our language on their radios. They would use our language to develop a code. So it would still be code, but it would be a code based on native languages. And our people were being almost, I know it's been romanticized. So when I say this, there are some people going to say, well, that's not entirely true. Our people were coerced or forced into these situations. And the fact of the matter is, our language was totally exploited by the U.S. war machine. A language they were trying desperately to kill. And in fact, the fact that they killed so much of our language made the code worth even that much more. Because now you didn't even have a lot of natives who spoke the language. So when you could find a few, and you put one on one end of a radio, one on the other end of the radio, now the one in the field, there were standing orders that if a code talker in the field looked like he was going to be captured, the orders were to kill him. Oh yeah, he's wearing an American uniform. But they were assigned watchers, essentially, whose job it was to kill the American code talker using native language, because they didn't want him captured. They were afraid they'd be tortured, and then the Japanese would be able to break the code. So that's how expendable our people were. Now, look, I know we have spent decades praising the value of the Native American code talkers. And it's true that those codes did help the U.S. in a big way, because finally they could communicate with privacy and securely without having their information intercepted. I mean, that's kind of where we still battle with those issues, right? Privacy and how do you encode something? How do you make sure that something can't be identified and understood? I mean, it's all about security, right? But I mean, the fact of the matter is, there were Native people, and there were Mohawks too. In fact, the Mohawks, they've been doing these honoring ceremonies up there in Akwesasne and other places, about Mohawk code talkers. And of course, that generation of men who served in World War II, Native men especially, that were these code talkers, they're very aged, and many of them, there are very few left. So Donald Trump, to get back to it, but I had to kind of set the stage here. So Donald Trump is hosting an event where he's supposed to be honoring these Navajo code talkers. And even as he's supposed to be, I mean, this is how freaking stupid this guy is. Even as he is supposed to be, levying some sort of honor amongst these guys, he takes the opportunity to throw some shots at Elizabeth Warren, and again, calling her Pocahontas, insulting her by trying to call her Pocahontas. For one thing, I don't know when Pocahontas became an insult, but that's what Donald Trump thinks he's cute. He thinks it's funny. He thinks he's being witty. by referring to Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas. His quote had something to do with, talking about what a tremendous people you are. You've been here longer than everybody. All that. You can tell when somebody has really nothing to say because they say just BS. And so as he's talking about Native people having lived here, and of course he's looking at these old men and saying, you lived here longer than anyone. And it's like, no, our ancestors have. I mean, he doesn't even understand the concept that, no, we haven't lived here any longer than anybody else our age here. It's that our ancestors have been here since time immemorial. But he takes that opportunity as he's talking to these older Navajo, these code talkers, supposedly trying to praise them, honor them, I guess. He says, "Yeah, we got somebody in Congress who says she's been here longer than everybody else too," which isn't what Elizabeth Warren has said. And we call it Pocahontas. No, nobody calls her Pocahontas. Only you freaking moron. You're the only idiot on the planet that thinks that it's cute, appropriate, or anything other than racist to refer to Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas. We'll get into Elizabeth Warren, but right now I want to talk about Trump and the idea that he would invoke a name of a little girl. Because let's be honest, I mean, the story of Pocahontas, yeah, by the time she did die, I mean, she was an adult when she died. She was 21 years old. She was kidnapped by white people, indoctrinated, in all likelihood raped, stories made up about her, and then a tobacco baron by the name of John Rolfe convinces her, or whether she even had a choice, who knows, but marries her, takes her back to Europe. She gets one of the diseases there. I don't know if it was influenza, the flu, or whatever, and she dies. Has one child, male child. So there is no legacy. I mean, she died by the time she was 21. She was whisked away from her people, before she was 20. I mean, she lost her adolescence by being kidnapped and held captive by the Jamestown colony. And Donald Trump thinks it's appropriate to make to mock Elizabeth Warren by making a mockery of a young Native girl who was, again, kidnapped, abused, assimilated, indoctrinated, and died at the hands of white people. He thinks it's appropriate. I mean, this is a guy who is so stupid. He doesn't even know when he's being racist. And to the extent that he is racist, he thinks it's cute. Thinks it's funny. Thinks he's being witty. I mean, I can't believe that nobody close to him says, you know what, Donald, ixnay on the Okapanas pay, I mean, it's not working. It's not funny. It's not only not funny, it's insulting not to Elizabeth Warren. It's insulting to everybody else who hates the myth and the story that has been made up about Pocahontas. The whole, oh yeah, she laid her head down to save Captain John Smith. Bullshit. Didn't happen. He made it up too. I mean, he's like Donald Trump, just making stuff up. I mean, this is so pathetic. And again, what a bunch of wormy people around this guy that nobody has the courage or the sense or honor or integrity to tell the guy stop doing look. You don't talk about grabbing women by their crotch anymore because that was inappropriate. This is inappropriate too. I mean, it is just absolutely incredible that this guy can demonstrate his ignorance so often, so freely. I mean, it's not like he just dropped this once or twice. He's been doing this continuously. I mean, it's incredible. It's just incredible. And then you get Sarah Huckabee defending it. I mean, I don't know how do these morons who work there and work for this idiot, how do they justify their complicity with it all? All right, let me spend a few minutes here talking about Elizabeth Warren. Look, I'm not a fan of anybody in that system. Really, I'm not. I mean, there hasn't been a president that I haven't found fault in, including Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter. I mean, go all the way back. I don't, take your pick. Every one of them has earned the title that we give to the president of the United States, Run the Gallas. Every one of them has. But you know what? The senators, the congressmen, the governors, the state assembly, every one of these guys are just completely ignorant to the people who predate their existence. And that's why they say stupid stuff all the time. I mean, they can't even acknowledge the fact that we don't believe that we're theirs. That we don't necessarily agree that we're Americans. They can't even fathom that idea. You know, unfortunately, we have a few Native people who think that too. What do you mean we're not Americans? Of course we're Americans. We put on their uniform and fight their battles for them. Well, that's a whole nother issue. But no, they can't fathom the idea that we have not rejected our nationality, that we still maintain that we are Ungwe, that we are not Americans. They can't even begin to understand that. So, if you go down the list now, and I'm not going to say that every president, every congressman, every senator is as bad as the next one, because some are real bad. Donald Trump is the worst modern time president in American history. I mean, I'm not going to compare him to Andrew Jackson and people who have blood on their hands, literally. But what makes Donald Trump so bad isn't just that he's racist; it's that he's stupid. No, I know. Racism has its foundation in ignorance. I get that. But if you believe that you are of the superior race and you have some means to demonstrate superior intellect or some sort of prowess that would, suggest that you have accomplished something, Donald Trump was born rich. He lost more money than he made. And the fact that a bunch of stupid Americans elected this guy, that says more about the ignorance in the American population than it does about Donald Trump. But you know what? I get it. People got so, disillusioned with American politics, they wanted to change. So they figure they're going to, vote for a guy who was on television, a guy who builds hotels. But you know what? If you made that decision to vote for him because you thought maybe this is the change that was needed, that's one thing. Bad idea, but that's one thing. But it's a completely different thing to be sycophantically in love with this moron and to be such a Donald Trump supporter that if somebody insults him or calls him out for being insulting or being a racist or for saying something stupid, that you get offended? You get offended because somebody calls out Donald Trump for being who he is? If you're that much of a fan of Donald Trump, then you are a moron. You are just a freaking moron. And no hedging this one. It is what it is. Now, again, I think he is the worst modern day president. And I'm not saying that he's done the worst things, but as far as a human being, an ignorant human being, it's incredible that this guy is the president of the United States. I mean, the only thing I will say, he is so stupid that he probably will accomplish so very little that he may not do as much damage as people are afraid of. And I realize that he does have the nuclear codes and, he could do something really, really stupid there. But the likelihood is he probably won't, but who knows? All right. So again, let me get back to Elizabeth Warren. She's not a bad person. look, she's a senator. She's in that system. The fact that she believed or believes that she has Native ancestry, guess what? Lots of people do. Lots of people have Native ancestry who are not enrolled members of a tribe. Yeah, I said it. There are lots of people. There are lots of Americans, not Native people, because I'm going to get into drawing this distinction. The fact that Elizabeth Warren was told as a child that her grandmother or great-grandmother or whatever else was Cherokee, do you know how many people were told that? And some of those people were told truths. There are many people. In fact, right here in Cattaraugus, there are many people on every Native territory. There are many people who are Native who are not enrolled. It's because we bought into this stupid system that the Bureau of Indian Affairs, creates this list. You have to be an enrolled member. We don't even use words like citizen. How many people will say, I'm Seneca? Or I'm Mohawk? Or how many of you say, oh, I'm an enrolled member of the Seneca Nation of Indians? Or I'm an enrolled member of the St. Regis tribe of Mohawks? Look, if you have to frame your identity about being an enrolled member of something that has been manufactured by the federal government in terms of the name or separating, to say you're Seneca is one thing, but to say you're an enrolled member of the Seneca Nation of Indians, that's you walking in their footsteps. Look, I understand the whole thing with enrollment. I get it. I mean, I know that there's issues involved in that. But there are many Native people who have Native ancestry who are not enrolled members of a quote unquote tribe for a variety of reasons. Now, there are many Native people who may not be enrolled, but there's no question that they're Native people. Now, having said that, there are a whole lot of other people who I would not characterize as Native people, but rather people who have Native ancestry. There are many Americans who are totally American. They vote, they serve in the armed forces. They pledge allegiance to the flag, and they stand up for the national anthem, and they're proud, and they wave the American flag outside their house. And there are plenty of people who do that who still have some Native ancestry. Now, look, I don't condemn Americans. I don't. And I certainly don't condemn an American or anybody else. I don't care if you're German or whatever country you are a citizen of, that if you have Native ancestry and you embrace that Native ancestry to the point that you bring it up because you're proud of it. Why would we be insulted by that? It'd be different if they're saying, well, I've got Native ancestry and I want to take something from I want something that Native people have that I don't have. Well, that's another issue. And I know there was some debate about whether Elizabeth Warren, when she attended college, whether they used her claim to Native ancestry as some way of checking a box that represented diversity. Well, you know what? Shame on the university. I mean, if you are a university or anything else, if you are running some sort of trade organization or watchdog committee that says, well, we want to make sure that Native people aren't being ripped off, by claiming that they're, by people claiming to be Native because they're making jewelry or maybe a minority business or whatever else. I mean, at some point along the way, I mean, you can verify whether somebody is a quote unquote enrolled tribal member. And if that's your standard, then so be it. But if it's not your standard, if all it takes is somebody to, to say, well, yeah, I've got, I'm 132nd, Passamaquoddy. If that's all somebody has to say, and then you say, oh yeah, native, well, then your bar's pretty low. But you know what? I'm not worried about those people. If Elizabeth Warren believes that she's part Cherokee, and she may be, folks, and look, if you are one of the quote unquote federally recognized Cherokee tribal organizations, by all means, you can attest. No, she's not a member of our tribe. But that still doesn't mean. I'm sorry, it still doesn't mean that she doesn't have a Native ancestry. Now, I mean, whether she can back it up and prove it or whatever else, I mean, how many people do that? How many people can prove their ancestry anyway? I don't know. Again, that is not the hallmark or the main issue about Elizabeth Warren. She is not wearing this Native identity on her shirt sleeve. That's not what she does. Frankly, I think she's a strong advocate for consumer rights and stuff like that. She was probably the best choice for a Democrat woman to have run for president instead of the idiot that the Democrats put up last time in Hillary Clinton. The woman should have been president, not the moron who's in the White House right now. But again, I mean, you get to this to the Trump comment, and here's where we got to break this thing down. How is it? In what possible way could it be appropriate for the president of the United States to call a sitting senator a name that she has no connection to, but call a name that is actually more fiction than truth in the way that the Americans have appropriated the whole Pocahontas story, including what Disney or anybody else has done with it, the sexualization of I mean, cripe, not to mention, I mean, did you see the Nicki Minaj thing? Did you ever see? Did you finally see that? Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, it is just amazing to me that knowing that this is a girl that was kidnapped and held hostage, and she was held hostage. I mean, she was actually held, hoping that her grandfather, who was a Powhatan chief, would release British captives, which he did, and of course they still never gave her up. So this is terrorism. I mean, this is terroristic kidnapping. But the idea that they've sexualized her over the years, and knowing that in all likelihood she probably was sexually abused. I mean, she's only 12 years old when they grabbed her, and they made her into a fine woman, changed her name. Hey, when she died, she wasn't Pocahontas. She was Lady Rebecca. Yeah, that was her name. They gave her a good Christian name. Yeah, you don't hear Trump calling Elizabeth Warren Lady Rebecca. Nope, it won't say that. That just doesn't work, does it? So, look, I wanted to spend at least the first part of the show, and I know it's all over the Facebook. I mean, even on my group page, if you go to Let's Talk Native, the story and just what Trump has done, and the words that he said and that kind of stuff. It's all right there, and it's certainly not the first time that he's done it. There's also a few people have posted some of the truth to myth bust the Pocahontas story. Yeah, by all means, take a look at it, and give it a look. I mean, and you know what? It is high time that people condemned this freaking moron in the White House. I mean, and you know what? Including the people who will be complicit with his racist comments, and who try to justify it, including Sarah Huckabee Sanders, or I mean, this woman's just the worst. I mean, it's just incredible. All right, hey, we're at the bottom of the hour. We'll take a break and we'll come back, and I'll find something else to rant and rave over when we get back after this. This is John Kane. This is Let's Talk Native.
What do you mean, baby? Why am I in the doghouse? I've been a good boy. Too many nights in the doghouse, feeling the cold wind blow. Too many times I've been put out, pouring rain, driving snow. But don't treat me like your dog. Don't you bark at me. I'm a man of good, loving man. Understand that I can't stand the way you treat me. I'm not gonna be your dog. Don't put your chain on me. I'm not gonna be your dog. So baby, baby, unleash me. Come on, baby. I used to think it was all my fault, but it was you, baby, not me. I spent my life trying to please you, honey. Where did that get me? I got your slippers and your paper too. Don't throw stones at me. I'm a man of good, loving man. Understand that I can't stand the way you treat me. I'm not gonna be your dog. Don't put your chain on me. I'm not gonna be your dog. So baby, baby, unleash me.
All right, we all been there. The doghouse. It's one of those universal expressions at this point. It doesn't matter if you're native, non-native. We've all, and it's invariably when we say that we're in the doghouse, it means we're in trouble with our wives. I mean, it's amazing because if you're in trouble with anybody else, you don't get you're not considered in the doghouse. Only a woman can put you in a doghouse. She can put you in the poorhouse too, but that's a whole nother story. All right, let me get back into it. Look, I want to thank my sponsors. I want to thank Ross and Holly John of the RJE family of businesses, Eric White and ERW Enterprises, my good friends like Ed Schindler, Cynthia Trice, Neville Spring, Sugar Montour, and the Seneca Nation. Of course, they're my friends. For supporting the show, for supporting the work that I do, the writing that I do, the travel that I do, the speaking that I do. Look, if I didn't have the financial support to do this show and my show in New York in particular, it wouldn't exist. And of course, I also want to thank those people who have helped in the past, because we're in our 8th year here, and we've been doing this for a long time, and we've been doing one show a week for many of those years. Now 2 shows a week here at Let's Talk Native. Plus, I'm in my 3rd or 4th year in New York, doing a 2-hour show once a week in New York City. I mean, we do this every week, 2 or 3 shows a week, and of course we've got folks like Donald Trump to thank for not running out of material. So I mean, I gotta thank all those folks who have supported the show over the years, because especially when we were on commercial radio, it was expensive. And if I didn't have the advertisers and the sponsors and the donors, we wouldn't be able to say today we're in our 8th year. So I want to thank all of you who have done your part. I wish you'd come back and continue to support. So, hey, the more resources I have, the more we can do. And, luckily we're covering it. We're covering it. But, look, I want to thank you guys for having helped us in the past, because that's joining the fight. That's doing your part, and that's helping us continue to educate, entertain, and inform over all these years. So I also want to thank Unity Stream and Apache Radio Net for providing our streaming. I also want to thank CKWE, the GUE in Tandanega, for the simulcast and the rebroadcast. I also want to thank Netroots Radio, Real People's Media, and Indigenous Resistance Radio for carrying the show and putting the show up on your networks. And of course, all of you who share the show, and nobody shares it more than my wife. My wife, every time we fire this live stream up, she's putting it on the group pages out there. And there's many Native group pages out there, and so she puts it out there. Just so it's available. Look, people don't have to agree with what I say here. I mean, look, I have a strong opinion about a lot of things, and of course, the thing that I feel most strongly about is promoting Native sovereignty. And in order to do that, there are some lines you got to draw in the sand, and there's some language that we have to, kind of either weed out of our lexicon. I mean, membership versus being a citizen, or if being Native is your nationality, then say that you're a part of that nation. Say that you're Ongwe, say that you're Seneca, or you're Onondawaga, or you're Mohawk, or Ganyakahaga, or you're Oneida, Onyotaaga, or Anishinaabe, or whatever. But you don't need to frame yourself within a tribal organization that the federal government has a list on their register. I understand that exists, but so when I talk about these things, I do so because I think we have to frame our identity in our own language, and we have to use our own means for framing that identity rather than letting the federal government dictate it to us. So, I feel very strongly about that. All right, I want to move on. Tomorrow morning from 10 to 11, I'm going to be on WJJL. That's in Buffalo here. It's 1440 a.m. I don't know if they stream or not. I guess I should have found out. Look it up online. I know they have a Facebook group page. So, again, it's WJJL. I'm going to be on the Vince Anello show. He's got a Facebook group page as well. So I'm not sure if it streams or not. Maybe I should find out. I don't know. Maybe I should bring my Mevo. I don't know. Maybe I could do that. But anyway, we're going to do this. I'm going to do an interview, and this is up in Niagara Falls. So we're obviously going to be talking about Niagara Falls issues. And of course, the Niagara Falls issue as it relates to Native people. Well, there's a couple, actually, not the least of which is the fact that the Tuscaroras are still struggling with good drinking water, even though the New York Power Authority, created this huge dam, carved that out of Tuscarora territory, so they could generate power. It seems like in a world where water is driving so much, Tuscaroras have a hard time, getting clean, drinkable water, and so that's been an issue up there. So I don't want to suggest that everything's about gaming, but one of the 800-pound gorilla in the room when you talk about Niagara Falls is the essentially the relationship between the Seneca Nation and Niagara Falls. And of course, this has to do with gaming revenue. And while the city of Niagara Falls and Buffalo and Salamanca do not get money directly from the Seneca Nation as a revenue sharing revenue, I guess, or a gaming revenue, they do get 25% of what the state has got, or they have gotten 25% of what the state has gotten over the first 14 years of Seneca gaming. That came to an end last December. So it'll be a year, in just in a few days. It'll be, the 12 months since the revenue sharing has ended. In all that time, the Seneca Nation has said over and over again, look, we could get together, we could talk about, what we could do to, at least do some service agreements and, so you're not out any money because of our presence, so we're not affecting your city, so to speak. And then, of course, there are some other things the Seneca Nation has done outside of the revenue sharing agreement that has put money into places like Niagara Falls, Buffalo, and Salamanca. And those things can continue. But you know what? In order for those things to continue, there should be a dialogue. But for whatever reason, whether it's been dictated by the dictator-in-chief in Albany, Andrew Cuomo, that these cities are forbidden to meet with the Seneca Nation and have direct talks, because that's one of the myths that's put out there. Oh no, Niagara Falls they can't meet with the Senecas. What do you mean they can't meet that? They've been meeting with the Senecas the whole, for 14 years over this issue, over various issues. They can't have a revenue sharing agreement in the way that the state can, And frankly, there's a reason that can't happen anyway. What could Niagara Falls give the Seneca Nation? The only thing the state could offer was exclusivity, and they didn't really even offer that. So anyway, I'm going to go on the Vince Anello Show. Vince is a former mayor of Niagara Falls. He does this radio show on WJJL. That's 1440 AM in Niagara Falls, and we're gonna talk about these issues. But I'm gonna spend a few minutes. I want to talk about some of the stuff, the myths that are out there right there. I got word back the other day that the buzz around Niagara Falls is that the Seneca Nation has been escrowing the money that would be going to that would have otherwise been going to the state for this past year. That's the buzz in Niagara Falls, and in saying that, what they're implying is the Senecas, they know they're going to have to pay. That's why they're escrowing that money. You know what? It's simply not true. They aren't. For one thing, the whole idea of escrowing funds, as per the gaming compact, the deal was if the Seneca Nation felt that the state was breaching its revenue, its exclusivity arrangement, that is the whole reason for the revenue sharing, then what the Seneca Nation, as a forcing function to make sure that the issues got addressed, they could stop the flow of money to the state of New York and instead put the money into an escrow account. That's laid out in the gaming compact. It's the remedies for solving this issue. Oh, we lost our signal? Oh. So are we not even recording at this point? Okay, all right, we're back. Sorry about that. We lost it. We lost you for a second there. So anyway, that mechanism, which is laid out in the gaming compact, is the means for which the Seneca Nation would stop paying the state of New York and rather put money into an escrow account pending a resolution of the problem or whatever the complaint is. That's not what's at play here. The Seneca Nation isn't saying, "Oh, the state is violating the exclusivity agreement, and so we are suspending payment." No, that's not the deal here. The Seneca Nation was very clear in negotiating the compact that it was only for 14 years. 14 years ended. It ended next month. Will be a year. So there was no need for the Seneca Nation to put money into escrow account pending a resolution. As far as the Senecas are concerned, there is no resolution. Now, look, I know the state is trying to push this thing into arbitration, hoping they can get some relief from and prevail through some sort of arbitration hearings. But the likelihood of that happening, everybody who's looked at this, any lawyer who doesn't have a dog in this fight, any lawyer who's objectively looked at this thing, knows the state's on weak footing, on very, very weak footing. And nobody can believe that the Seneca Nation is not going to prevail here. So having said that, the story that's out there that the Senecas have been escrowing money, it's simply not true. Now, here's what I will say. Now, I'm not saying that the Senecas have spent every dime that they, that would have gone to the state of New York. I think they're finally being very wise with how they're using the money. They are leveraging the money. It is not. I'm not saying they have spent it all, but it's not sitting in some escrow account pending a resolution. So that's flat out a myth. And so anybody who's spreading that around, it's just untrue. It's a lie. It's just not what's happening. And again, if the powers that be in Niagara Falls, and I gave an interview to the Buffalo News, although it doesn't look like they're going to produce a story out of it, but I gave an interview a week or so ago, and just trying to reiterate the fact that, look, the Niagara Falls just went through an election. There's some new people sitting on the city council. There's some people who are on the council who were reelected, who have expressed a willingness to, move this thing off of center here. And yet, the media won't cover any talks about or any possibility of Niagara Falls or Buffalo or Salamanca sitting with the Seneca Nation to address, again, to address the promise the Seneca Nation made, which was they planned to remain good neighbors to Western New York. And they're going to do right by their friends and neighbors. That's what they said. I'm not suggesting that they said they're going to, by being good neighbors, they're just going to throw money into city coffers. But they have expressed a willingness to address certain things they could do together. That will involve the Seneca Nation putting some money up. Certainly, they made it very clear they would pay for any services that these cities provide to the Seneca Gaming Corporation. They made that very clear. But you know what? You know who's gotten together to talk about this? Nobody. I mean, not only are the mayors not doing it, but nobody on the city councils. I mean, look, I know there's some coffee shop talk that happens. But it's like I don't know what these people are terrified from. Or terrified. I mean, are they afraid of the governor? What does that say? I mean, what does that say about governance in New York State or the federal government when people have to toe the line? When you got a Sarah Huckabee Sanders who has to justify the moronic stuff that comes out of Trump because it's her job. Or you got guys sitting on city councils in Niagara Falls or in various places in state government or in county government and municipal governance who they can't say what they know they should be saying. That they actually do their job with a certain level of fear that keeps them towing the line for the establishment political machines. Some pretty incredible stuff when you think about it. So no, I think it's probably time for us to revisit some of what this battle has been. I mean, I don't know how quickly arbitration. I think the state finally. It didn't take rocket science, but because they pulled the same judge, here's how the arbitration works. Seneca Nation names one of the judges or tribunal members. The state names one, and then the two judges name a third. They work it out amongst themselves. I don't even know if that process has started yet, but it took forever for the state to finally name the same guy they tried to bring in last time. Seneca Nation was real clear that they made their choice right off the bat. They said, "Fine, we can do this in arbitration." They weren't worried about it, but the governor sure dragged his feet. And in fact, I don't know if he's been trying to insist that the venue be in New York City rather than in Western New York, which is where we are. Why would the Seneca Nation want to do arbitration hearings in New York City? I mean, it doesn't even make sense. The most expensive place in the world to do something like that, and this is what the governors, you can tell it's just a ploy. It's foot dragging, and it's about trying to be vindictive, and thinking that he's going to have, perhaps, maybe a home court advantage, because let's face it, everybody in major positions in state government, have some roots to New York City and ties there. But, so that's probably not going to happen. But, it's just more foot dragging on the part of the governor. And, again, it's an interesting world that we live in, where a Democratic governor in a state like New York can be every bit as insulting to Native people as a Republican president sitting in Washington. And that's what we have. I mean, it's why, I talk about this all the time, and I suggest that there's a unique racism that Native people, and I don't mean just, Senecas, Mohawks, Haudenosaunee, Ongwe. I mean, I don't mean just, as I see it here, I've got my Mauna Kea Protectors shirt on. Native people across the planet have a unique racist experience at the hands of the dominant society around the world, at the hands of white people. So whether you're talking about Africa or Australia, Indonesia, anywhere. Certainly Hawaii. I mean, I don't think anybody, could. I don't know how you could tell the Hawaiian story in everything from the exploitation of their sacred mountain, for science, so they can put, these telescopes, break every Hawaiian law there is in terms of building. Well, they want to build a 30-meter telescope, 30-meter telescope on this mountain. They had to break every building code that exists in Hawaii to do so. But just because, why? Because there's money involved. It's a $1 billion, it's a $3 billion project from what I understand, something along those lines. But the experience that Native people throughout the planet, what we've endured, and again, even down to this thing with this, praising the code talkers. I don't know how you tell that story. I don't know how you tell the story of code talking. I mean, when they made a movie, even the movie gave some indication that it wasn't just brave Native people looking to fulfill their warrior culture by enlisting in the armed forces. No, you know what? Save it. You know why Native people enlist at a higher rate than other ethnicities? Poverty. You don't see a whole lot of rich Native people enlisting in the armed forces. If they have opportunities, they don't go. Just like you don't see rich white people joining the military, unless they come from a family of military, legendary military service or something like that. But the reason Native people enlist is because we have gotten such a short straw on everything. We have had lands that were stolen. We've had our children stolen. We've had our women have been brutalized and still are brutalized. I'm staring now at my missing and murdered Indigenous women's flag. I mean, we are a people who continue to be insulted by the President of the United States, by the governor of the state of New York, by every pro and high school team and a few college teams that want to make a mockery of our culture by slapping our images on the side of their football helmet or whatever else, or parading their "Get ready for another Trail of Tears" banners out on their football field and all that other stuff. We get insulted on a daily basis for entertainment. I mean, I've posted the cartoon of Bugs Bunny shooting through the wall of a fort, and then he counts 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians and marks them off on the wall. Then when he gets to 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indian, 4 little, 5 little, 6 little, wait a minute, that one was a half breed, and then he erases half the mark. That was really, really funny for white people. Not so funny for Native people. Again, the sexualization of Pocahontas and in the high the bare leg showing out the side of out of her dress, and low cut and all that other. I mean, it's just insulting. Pocahontas Halloween costumes, cheerleaders with the, dressed up with like little Pocahontas. No, they aren't dressed up like little Pocahontas, but that's what they're going for. The sexualization of our women is something that's nonstop. That's why missing and murdered Indigenous women is a thing. There's a reason that exists. The reason that exists is racism. And I know, oh, no, he's not going to say racism again. Yeah, I am. Because that's what lies at the core of all this stuff. Hey, let's. I'm almost out of time here. I'm going to screen Rumble, the Indians Who Rocked the World. So let me just before we got just enough time, we'll play the trailer for that film. I'm going to screen this thing at the Cinema Arts Center in Huntington, New York. That's out on Long Island. Again, at the Cinema Arts Center. That's Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. If you're in the area or even close, make the trip out. I think you're going to enjoy this. And of course, I'm thrilled that the Cinema Arts Center invites me out to screen films, and we do several of them a year. and this is the one that we selected for this month. So we're going to screen the film. I sure would like you to come out, but if you don't, try to find a place that does screen the film and get a chance to check this out. We'll play a trailer here, and you'll get a taste of it here.
There was a song came on the radio, a guitar instrumental, and it changed everything.
Link Ray, it's rock and roll.
Rumble. Yeah, that's the one.
Rumble.
Hey, Rumble.
Rumble had the power to help me say, I'm going to be a musician.
And then I found out that he was an Indian.
The music that we know here in the United States is fully supported by input from Native and Indigenous people.
Mr. Randy Castillo! Randy had become one of the most influential heavy metal drummers in the world.
This is Jesse Ed Davis.
I particularly fell in love with Jesse Edwin Davis. He was with Taj Mahal, and Taj's album is what spurred me to rock more.
And here's your rocking chair lady, Mildred Bailey.
From 16 to 20 years old, that's the only thing I listened to was Mildred Bailey. I just said, I want to learn how to sing like her.
Figuring out that these people were Indians, and then we started to ask ourselves, why didn't anyone else know that?
There was this key expression: be proud you're an Indian, but be careful who you tell.
All of a sudden, I was talking about Native American issues and big-time television. And all of a sudden, everything disappeared.
From Charlie Patton to Link Ray, Robbie Robertson invented the genre. Jimi Hendrix is the best in his field. Jesse Ed Davis, everybody wanted him. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? He's gone too long under the radar.
All right, that's it. That's Rumble, the Indians Who Rock the World. Going to screen that film on Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. at the Cinema Arts Center in Huntington, New York. And, of course, on Thursday morning, I will be doing my show in New York, and that's on WBAI 99.5 in the FM dial. And, of course, you can go to WBAI.org, and you can stream the show live. And we'll Facebook live stream it as well. So we'll be doing that on Thursday morning from 10 till noon. And, of course, don't forget, tomorrow I will be on WJJL 1440 AM in Niagara Falls, and I will be on the Vince Anello show in Niagara Falls, and that should be an interesting conversation. So check it out. Look, in New York, Shawnee Rice, my co-host, will be joining me, and we've got a lot to catch up on because not only has she made quite a statement by climbing the flagpoles in front of Chase a couple of days before, condemning them for the Keystone XL pipeline a couple of days before it ruptured. That was timely. But she also has been testifying at some of the city hearings about the removal of statues. So we'll get a chance to catch up with her on that. So look for us, again, Thursday morning from 10 to noon on WBAI. And that's WBAI.org. Look, that wraps it up for us. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on Monday as well. Yahweh.
Ain't got no meat on her bones. If you're a woman like that, keep your skinny ass at home. She's heavy at the hip, but she's easy on the eyes. My baby's heavy at the hip, but she's easy on the eyes. And the best thing about her is those tree trunk thighs. I want a woman that can give me shade in the summertime.